对，这也是。Hoping for more people.
谢谢。
In April to celebrate the signing of Canada's Charters of Rights and Freedoms. So we're bringing it home today in Markham, in our little hometown, just to gather all the legal professionals and also to educate the public a little bit on the legal profession. So to start this off, Yen and also Nirmala Armstrong is going to introduce themselves.
严律师事务所和安斯壮律师事务所，我们一起能够有幸能够给大家 host 今天这场event。大家知道我们是一家来自中国的律师，我是一个中国的律师，同时也是加拿大的律师，所以我们来到这儿的话，我想先介绍一下我们律师事务所的这个团队成员，就比较好，容易我来讲今天的这个事情。Selina。 他的父母是意大利移民，那么他是在加拿大这边长大，然后学的法律。他是我们律师事务所的一名商业律师。珍娜丽 ，she's a Korean lawyer but called in the U.S. 她呢是一名韩国人，但是她在纽约和在加拿大都有律师牌照。Wendy。 我们有2位温蒂王，马上也将成为一名在中国是学法律，在这边加拿大的律师。温蒂胡，我们的 paralegal， Cedra， 我们另一位 paralegal。后面站的这些都是我们的 staff， 是我们的 assistant。我今天还特别想。 着重介绍一下我们沈晨律师，他也是一名来自中国的律师，并且呢，在加拿大是一名知名的刑事律师。Miss Armstrong， she's a Canadian family lawyer， 有30年的从业家庭法律师的这个经验。我先给大家讲一下我们律师事务所平常的工作是非常融洽的，但是我们律师事务所分2派。当有客人问到的时候，说我们想写一份婚前财产协定，我想问一下在座的大家如果大家要结婚的话，婚前要大家写一份婚前财产协定，有多少在座的朋友希望写这个文件？有的话举手。
后悔了，
后悔了。所以呢，我们律师事务所当有客人来做这个文件的时候，我们自己私下里关着门有个讨论。那我们讨论就是，如果是在加拿大读书学法律的朋友们，他们就会说了，如果我没有写这个婚前财产协定的话，那么我是不结婚的。在座很多来自中国的朋友，如果在中国的我们这边长大的具有中国的这个文化的家庭们，如果让我们的小孩说婚前写一份婚前财产协定的话，我们这个有中国背景的就说了，如果要让我写的话， 那我这个婚就不结了。有没有这个事情？听没听到过这个说法？在我们小小的一个律师事务所，当客人来的时候，我们都遇到这样的问题。就不要想了，我们很多客人是从中国来的，那么要在中国提起一个到加拿大的离婚或者是家庭的这个财产之争，这个时候我们就涉及到了中国和加拿大双边的两边的婚姻法。大家知道，在中国买个房子需要律师吗？不需要。在加拿大买个房子，一个律师还不够，需要2个。为什么？因为法律在两个国家、两个地域不同的国家的法律，实际上通常有的时候会出现冲突的情形。这个情形的话，遇到这种情况的话，怎么来解决这个问题？我们作为一批国际法律从业者，既有中国的法律背景，也有加拿大的法律背景，我们希望能够把中加两国的这个文化的区别，以至于其他的文化的、其他的族裔的法律的这个区别，能够带给大家。所以我们倡议有一个世界法律日，能够介绍不同国家的法律区别，以及让大家能够有一个 awareness。不同的国家文化的区别，还有就是在适用法律的时候，大家说，如果两国出现法律冲突的时候，用哪个国家的法律啊？Yeah, so when two countries, when the legal system based on the cultural difference, the legal system also they're different. So when we have the clash between two legal systems, which one should be prevail? Canadian, because we're in Canada, right? So we still gonna facing those clash between culture and the laws. That's why we bring today to everyone and share today. That's so meaningful that we can see the differences between laws here, starting from Markham. 所以今天我希望大家能召开这个新闻发布会，就是可以有机会，可以跟大家一起了解不同国家的法律的区别，还有就是我们怎么样作为一个国际法律人，能够给大家带来真正的公平公正的执法和适用法律。
When we put in Chinese is that, well, in China or in some of the other Asian countries, things like marriage agreements, prenups, separation agreements, or even wills are blasphemous. Okay, we would never ask our children to sign one because then the relationship would be over. Whereas in Canada, a lot of people would never get married without a marriage agreement or would never get divorced without a separation agreement. So here today, we're going to have former Regional Councillor Nirmala Armstrong to come back up to speak to us about family law.
Well, Serena, thank you very much. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce my law firm to all of you. And just in case you haven't heard, let me tell you a little bit about myself and my family. So I was called to the bar, and not the bar to drink alcohol, the bar on June 23rd, 1995. I am a graduate from Queen's Law School, and also I have a Master's of Law from Osgood, and my undergrad is Political Science from the University of Toronto. So the three, in my opinion, great law universities in Ontario. In addition to that, I had an opportunity to teach at the Law Admissions, which is with the Law Society of Upper Canada. And when I say the Law Admissions, the Bar Admissions, when lawyers, like I'll introduce one person, two people who will be doing the bar soon. And also, I still do what you call item writing. Let me tell you what item writing is for the Law Society. The exams that the lawyers take when they want to graduate, they have to write the bar admission exams. Well, people have to create those exam questions. I am one of those individuals who come together with quite a few other lawyers, and we prepare those exam questions and answers, and then that goes through a process. So I have been practicing family law for over 23 years, and my sole practice is with family law child welfare matter. So I have been on the Ontario Court of Justice as well as the Supreme Court, the Superior Court of Justice. So moving forward, let me introduce you to my family, and I'll tell you a little bit. Two of them are here, my children and my husband, but the other two. So let's start with the first so that you do know. My son, Jared Prasad, he's a lawyer, and his wife, Nazish Hussain, is also a lawyer, so they practice family law. My other son, Justin Prasad, and his wife, Dhamri Patel, are also lawyers. They have the benefit of being lawyers in Canada and United States. My third son, who is Michael Prasad Thomas. Michael, could you please stand up? Michael has done his law degree and he's doing his article to be with me in my law office. And my daughter just came home from Thunder Bay. Amanda Prasad Thomas, please stand up. Amanda just finished her second year at law school. So people ask me, what did I do right? That all my children are lawyers and my daughters-in-law. I don't know. All I know is that I love what I do, and maybe it rubbed off on them. I don't know. But we'll leave it like that. And my husband, who is the rock of our family, Tim Armstrong, can you please stand up? Now, would you believe that Tim retired? He used to work for Allstream Canada, which is a telephone business for small businesses, telephone, ranging for telephones and whatnot. And when he retired, he thought he was going to retire and do absolutely nothing. Well, when you have children who are lawyers, guess what? He comes and he works for us. So he's also in our law office, and he's working with us. And my law office will be moving from where it is right now at Major Mackenzie and Markham Road to now downtown Markham, which is the Enterprise and Birchmont area. So that's going to be sometime in August, September. Now, it's been a pleasure to know Yan. Yan and I came to know of each other through events, and plus she had this brilliant idea. It's not my idea, it's her idea about Markham Law Day. And the whole idea of Markham Law Day is to educate the public at large about the legal system. So today, I know I'm going to be speaking about family law. We do have two other lawyers. We've got Ryan with us, and we've got, Chris with us. And they're going to be talking about other areas of law. I won't tell you what area because you're guests. Okay? Family law. So I want you to understand that where you're from, if you were not born here in Canada and you come from another country, that area of law would be different from our area of law. So let me give you an example and walk through the system in 5 minutes for you, because there's no way you're going to learn everything or understand everything. So a client, we've got two clients, client A and client B. Client A is not married, client B is married. Client A has a child, client B has a child. Client A has a house, client B has a house. Okay, so A and B separated. Well, under the Family Law Act, client A who live together, I don't have the Divorce Act, which is one of the statutes that we have here in Canada that would govern individuals who are going through the legal process. I don't have that to work with the client A. I have the Family Law Act that I work with. Client B, who wants to separate and get a divorce, I go to the Divorce Act and the Family Law Act. But the difference is, under the Divorce Act, first and foremost, I have to say to the client, have you thought about reconciliation? Because the whole idea is to ensure that these people want to separate. And if they have thought about it, if they don't want to, then we move on. So one of the major things that is different is a lot of people think that when you have a property, you have a house and you got married, and this person's living in the house, or like client A, you own a house and your boyfriend or girlfriend come and they live with you, that both parties would be entitled to 50% because they stay as a matrimonial property. No, it's not. The Divorce Act is the only act that would give two people who are married to each other that right. Whereas if you live together and one person owns the property, you don't have that automatic right. So there's a difference. Now, if you take it to another country, the way people are treated, for example, women or even children, they're treated differently. on how and who gets custody. Also, property is treated differently. In the Canadian system, we look at the legal system here and not a legal system in another country. So if you were married and divorced in another country, some people would come and say to me, well, Ms. Armstrong, I'd like to get a divorce here. And I said, but are you not divorced? Yes, but I was divorced in my home country. So why would that be different from here? But I gotta get a Canadian divorce. So I said, did you marry your husband again? No. Well, then you want to divorce him twice? Well, you know what? Unfortunately, we don't do that here. You can only divorce your spouse once. So what I have to let them know is they need to get what we call an opinion letter. An opinion letter is from a lawyer saying that, yes, your divorce in your home country is legitimate. And that's what you take to go if you want to remarry. So that's property issue, again, how we talk about property issue and getting a divorce. Now, many, many years ago, men and women who were married, men would not give a woman a divorce. A woman had a difficult time in getting a divorce. And when you talk about the divorce today, there is only one reason for a divorce. Many people come and say, well, adultery or cruelty, but no, it's what you call a breakdown of a marriage. A breakdown of a marriage is basically saying, we cannot get back together. And then I say, well, why is there a breakdown of the marriage? Well, it could be adultery, cruelty, or living separate and apart. So today, it used to be men or women will hold the other party hostage and not divorce the person. But in the law that we have, you can be separated for 1 year and you will get your divorce. In different culture, because that's what we're talking about, how the law works in one culture to the other, in the Jewish community, there's also a religious divorce. In the Muslim community, there's a religious divorce. And if you're not divorced in the religious way, then you're not divorced at all, according to those individuals. So, but Canadian law, you're divorced. The property treated in one jurisdiction to another is, again, different. The custody, many times, men come to me and they said, it's a given. The wife is going to get custody with the child. Well, you know what? Sometimes it is true. 95% of it may be true. But it's the best interest test is what we look at. But in another country, when the child is up to 7, the father should have the child. So you see, it all differs. So when you come here to Canada, or you know people who want to go through the legal system, there is so much that they have to know. And that's why I recommend you do not go to a lawyer that does commercial law or tax law, and I'm not looking at the left side of the room, but you go to a lawyer that deals with family law that knows what's going on. So some lawyers are general practitioner and they do a variety, but they may not do every single thing in detail. But I have been practicing. So all I can say in the family law matter, you have to treat people who live together, what you call common law, and then you have to treat people who are married together differently. But when we talk about custody, child support, and men and women today, because you know what, women? We fought so hard to get where we are today, and we have great jobs, but guess what? Unfortunately, we do get separated as well. And because our husband was a stay-at-home dad, we end up paying child support. So, and we don't like that. But the way the law works, child support, the federal child support guidelines, if you separate, the person who does not have custody of the child is the person who has to pay child support. Then there's custody, joint custody, and that is decision making. But there's so much, as I said, it's 5 minutes, and I wanted to time myself because we have great speakers that's going to talk about much more details about their area of practice. But I wanted to share with you, and I see Yan kind of stepping up as we talk because we do know that time is of the essence. So again, if you have any questions, I'm here, please come and ask me. So thank you very much, and it's really a pleasure having you come out on an Easter Monday here at the Civic Center. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Sparling, and I met Jan back in 2015 when she came to downtown Toronto. I'm a downtown Toronto lawyer, always have been. I was called to the bar long ago. I won't tell you when. But I've been doing commercial litigation strictly for the last 25 years. And much of it is construction, landlord and tenant, and other types of commercial disputes between partners and shareholders, and real estate litigation. It's all based on contract law, which I love. Contract law is very interesting. I'm not able to say how Chinese contract law works. When Jan has a client, Jan and Wendy is sitting here, the two of them meet the client and go through the case with them, and then they speak to me and I give them questions to ask, and between the three of us we get it organized as to what the client's rights are. And then, if it's necessary, then we issue court proceedings to establish those rights. Contract law has a number of aspects to it which may be surprising, and I think that it's most important. Everybody says that a contract must be in writing, but that's not always the case. But proving an oral contract is difficult. You can have emails back and forth which could constitute a contract. A contract, essentially, is a promise for a promise. And that's important to remember. It's a bargain. It's a trade. I will do something for you if you do something for me. So what you need to do when you're making a contract is to write out what you're going to do and what they're going to do. And then you have to think about all the problems. What can happen if they don't do what they promised to do? Many times people come to me and they say, this was our agreement, and the other side did not do what they promised to do. I always say, so what? So what? What is your loss? It has to be in dollars. So it's surprising how many people come and they haven't actually quantified or calculated what their loss is. Interesting, it's something that we don't normally do, but I would certainly recommend it wherever possible. When you make your agreement, you can agree on the loss. So a simple case of construction, for example, if a contractor agrees that he's going to do something and he's going to finish it on June the 30th, well, what happens? June 30th comes along and he doesn't finish it. So the client comes and complains he's broken the contract. So I say, so what? If we go back to the beginning, when you made your deal, your contract with the contractor, think about it. What is it going to cost you if you're late moving in? So then you calculate the cost at the beginning and you negotiate that cost with the contractor. You say, I have to rent somewhere else, and the rent somewhere else will be so much per month. Then you set that in the contract. So if the contractor is late, then he pays that amount. And it has to be a fair calculation. You can't just penalize him. You can't just come up with any number at all. You have to come up with a calculation ahead of time. But most people really don't want to spend the time and effort to do that. And then when the trouble hits, then they have to do it. And then they go to court and persuade a judge how much the loss is. It's much easier if you agree on the loss at the beginning. It's like a marriage contract. No one wants to sign a contract and think at the same time that somebody is going to break the contract. But let's be realistic, it happens all the time. The other point that I would like to raise with you, which I think is interesting and important, is that what happens if you want to change a contract? So you sign a contract, and then they start to work, whatever the work may be, and then, or sale of goods or whatever, and then you want to make a change. Well, people don't seem to realize that when you make a change, of course you have to prove it, So it's always good to put the change in writing. But it's also important that there be a promise for a promise. So if you're going to ask that the color be changed from red to blue, then maybe you'll have to pay an extra $1 for it. Or maybe if it's going to go from red to gold, you're going to have to pay an extra $1,000 for it. So you have to have a promise for a promise, otherwise we can forget the change. Am I finished? I have one more point. And this is a very practical point which people ignore. And that is simply, when you make a contract with someone, or any sort of arrangement, this could be your partner in a new business, make sure that you write down, both of you, what it is you want them to do, write all that down, and then go and see a lawyer. See a lawyer first. Get the contract down in writing properly. And don't worry about spending a little extra money at that time, because you'll spend a lot more if you have to hire me to argue about what it was you agreed on. And if there's any argument about what you agreed on, you're going to end up in court. That takes time and money. So I suggest that you get legal advice before you sign your contracts. There we are, Jan.
Hi, thank you. Yes, so my name is Ryan Morris. I practice exclusively tax law. I don't dabble in family law at all. So tax law is generally considered one of the most complicated areas of law in each country. And so when you're talking about two different countries, you're talking about complex laws in both countries. And hopefully, if you're talking about that, there's also a tax treaty between Canada and the other country that's going to try to avoid double taxation. So what do I work with Yen and her firm structuring transactions to minimize tax consequences to the best possible ability, and at least to make the clients aware of what the tax consequences are going to be for a particular transaction. Those can be reviewing documents and making sure appropriate tax representations are there, tax protections, indemnities, and then again also just to try to structure it in terms of who the purchaser is or how best to sell it, and make sure there's no surprises. So just like a very general overview, obviously you're not going to learn everything about Canadian tax law today, but I do both individual taxation and corporate taxation. So when we're talking about individual taxation and you're coming from a different country or you're already here from another country, one of the questions we ask is, and determine with the client is, where are you resident? Because that will largely determine who has taxing authority. So for non-residents of Canada, they're not going to be taxed in Canada on their worldwide income. They're taxed in Canada on Canadian sourced income, so from businesses carried on in Canada, from employment services rendered in Canada, from rent that's earned on real property in Canada. Those are examples. Sometimes you can be resident in two countries. So you look at the Canadian rules, and that will determine whether you're resident in Canada. You look at the other country's rules as to determine if you're resident in that country. And the worst result is you're resident in both, and you're subject to double taxation. And that's why, in those situations, you hope that there's a tax treaty, because in tax treaties, they're generally structured. One of the main purposes of a tax treaty is to avoid double taxation. And there'll be a tiebreaker rule that says, if you're resident in this country and you're also resident in Canada, here's the rules to determine the tiebreaker rules to determine where you're resident, where we're going to treat you resident. Even though under domestic legislation you're resident in both, for purpose of the treaty you're going to be resident in one country or the other. And then at least in Canada, we have a rule that says if you're resident in the other country, then you're deemed not to be resident in Canada. And so you avoid that double taxation. If for residents in Canada, you have to, one of the things that people get tripped up on is you have to report your income on a worldwide basis. So even if you come to Canada, you had a business outside of Canada, you have to now report that business income in Canada. Again, assuming you're resident in Canada. You have to report certain and most foreign property on your tax return. There's an information return that if you have over 100,000 Canadian cost base in some foreign property, you have to report that in an information return. Some people come into Canada and think, oh wait, I'm going to start reporting my income on a going forward basis, but I don't have to report certain shares that I own in a brokerage house somewhere else in the world, or I don't have to report ownership of real property. So that's not the case. If you do find yourself, or if clients do find themselves offside the tax laws, there's a way to come forward to the CRA under our voluntary disclosure program, I say our Canada's voluntary disclosure program, and in an attempt to come forward in good faith to clean up the record, and the goal there is to have all penalties waived, so that you can have large penalties for not complying with tax laws. This is a program that you can come under to have those penalties waived. The other large, so in terms of also structuring transactions, but on the corporate side, it's also if there's non-residents that want to expand their business into Canada. They might not be coming into Canada personally, but they have a business, it's growing, they want to open up shop in Canada in one way or the other. So that's, you come into the Canadian tax net if you're carrying on business in Canada. And we provide advice in terms of, do you want to operate as a branch or a subsidiary? A subsidiary is a separate corporation, so if you have a Canadian corporation, it's going to be taxable just like an individual on its worldwide income. If it's a branch, it means there's no separate legal entity. It's the person or the foreign corporation that's going to be carrying on business in Canada directly. And so there's rules centered around both of those. And then again, it's quite complicated because you have the foreign tax laws that you have to navigate along with Canadian tax laws. So I think that is, I just want to give you a broad overview. I'm looking for, I'm happy to speak longer. Just want to give you that broad overview. Thank you very much.
我们实际上3级政府都有非常好的这个 incentive program， 鼓励我们新设的初创企业可以用人给我们这个 brand， 帮助我们前期的时候 set up 我们的这个我们的企业，所以大家一定要多关注，等他到这边来拿名片。好，然后我还想借这个机会介绍一下咱们华人社区的几位律师今天有幸也邀请到了童宇律师。沈晨律师刚刚有介绍是咱们的刑事律师，汪洋律师比较忙，对，就是咱们其实我们律师一个人做事情是做不了事情的，一定是大家一起，所有的这边呢都是我常常合作的，不讲中文的律师们。所以这边都是我讲中文的律师们，有的时候客人尤其是 refinance、finance、private mortgage， 通常会需要两边的律师。那么临时紧急情况之下，如果要是效率高的话，我们还是希望大家可以团结在一起，更多的这个机会可以有跟大家介绍。那么大家也知道，除了找我之外，还有这么多律师今天都到场，大家可以拿他们的名片，多多合作。And
Always introducing some of the people that she knows that are here. Also, we've got Yan Zhu over here, the real estate agent from Remax, who's working really hard in Markham, York region, and in the Greater Toronto area. We also have Splendid China Mall Executive Director Terrence Ma with us. Talk about things that are crazy in people's lives, because that's when they come to see a family lawyer. But, and I know she doesn't mind sharing, but Julie Maxey, stand up please, Julie. Julie Maxey was one of my clients 12 years ago, I think, and a family law matter, and I'll tell you from where she was to where she is now. She's a teacher. She ran for municipal election. That's a woman that's moved forward. So again, you know, when you're in family law, how you're at a situation where it's really emotional, that you can really rise above and move forward. And we have some other great people here, the media. But I really want to applaud Regional Councillor Jolie for being here. I had the pleasure of serving with him for 4 years, and he has been one of my mentors and a very strong advocate for the community. And it's to see him here today on a holiday, you know, again, it speaks volume on his commitment to the community. So I want to say thank you. So much you do know, it's the first ever, and our Mayor Frank Scapini loves to say this. It's the Markham first, right, Regional Councillor Jolie? Yes. So this is the first Markham Law Day here, and even in York Region. So I want to applaud Yan for bringing that idea together. And as a result of Markham Law Day, we will be doing this from what Selena said in 105.9 The Region when she was interviewed about Markham Law Day. She said this is going to be an annual event. So Chris and Ryan, I know you guys are Toronto, but you guys practice all over the area, so be prepared for next year as well. Okay, so we're planning now for that, right, Selena? Okay. So Markham Law Day is to educate the public at large. We've got different profession here, and I know Yan is going to be inviting you to a wonderful lunch so we can have fellowship and get to know more of each other. But another thing that we want to celebrate today, and Yan is holding on to this. I am so honored that Yan has chosen me to partner with her as, and I'm reading my title because this is my title, the Chief Legal Consultant for her law firm. So this is incredible and an honor. So it speaks volume on when nothing wrong, man. I'm not going to say this against men, but when one strong woman meets another strong woman.
Can I have all the strong women to come up?
Selena? Why don't we just have all the women come up? Because every woman is a strong woman. Ladies, please come and join us.
走进去才能到了。没有，你在那。